And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Tuesday, December 3rd. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we're going to start off the show. We are going to recap last night's epic Monday night matchup between the Denver Broncos and the Cleveland Browns. Very high scoring. Was way off on my score prediction, but the Broncos still won and covered. So we'll get into that. We'll also get into talking about Aaron Rodgers and what the Jets should do with him for the rest of the season. Now, it does seem like he's going to play out the rest of the year, but we'll kind of just get into that discussion. Also talking about the Seahawks-Jets game as well. Then we'll get into talking about the Black Friday game. We'll talk about the Chiefs and their win over the Raiders and the ending to that. We'll talk about the NFC South and update you guys on that, with both teams, the Buccaneers and the Falcons, now being tied at 6-6. Now the Falcons have the tiebreaker over the Buccaneers because they went 2-0 against them this year, but we'll get into, talking about how their schedules play out the rest of the way and who has the best chance of winning the division. And then in the final part of the show, we'll talk about what happened in the Jaguars-Texans game with Trevor Lawrence taking a hit from Azeez Al-Shire and how that game unfolded as well. Trevor Lawrence having to leave the game after that vicious hit. So that's the rundown for the show today. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the Broncos-Browns game. And I forget what I had the score at. I think I had it as 28-17 or something like that. But it was a very high-scoring game. There were 73 points in total with this game. There were 2 pick sixes by Jameis Winston, and he finished with 3 interceptions on the day. Bo Nix also had a couple of interceptions. So he had 5 interceptions total. Jameis Winston actually threw for 497 yards and 4 touchdowns. And that's what you're going to get out of him. And that's what happened during his 30-30 season, where he threw for a ton of yards, he threw touchdowns, but what came along with that was interceptions. And I got to tell you, he's going to be a guy that teams are going to want to look at and try to get to be their bridge guy for next year. Because, again, the turnovers are a problem, but that's a part of his game. But the guy could still play and put up big numbers, and that's what he did yesterday. And, the Browns were in a position where they could have won, but unfortunately that didn't happen. They definitely, offensively, since Deshaun Watson got hurt, Jameis has played the position better. Again, the turnovers come along with that, but, the offense has definitely looked competent with him playing QB. And like I said, they had a chance, but they came up short. And then Bo Nix, a couple of interceptions in this game. One of them got tipped up in the air. And then the other one, it was kind of an arm punt. But, he made some good plays as well. That touchdown to Mims, that was in the fourth quarter, I believe. That was a 93-yard touchdown, and that was a dot to Mims. Threw it over the defensive back of the Browns. Mims made the catch, and like I said, 93 yards. That was on 3rd and 11. And he, like I said, made some good throws last night. He's been getting better and better as the weeks go on. Again, you want to see him cut those interceptions out. Again, the second one wasn't really, or the first one wasn't really his fault, but, I thought he made some good plays as well. And the Broncos are in a good position right now. They're 8-5. Did not think they were going to be sitting with this record at this point in the season. I had them at 5 wins, I think, before the year started. So, I was wrong about them. I give them a lot of credit. I give Sean Payton a lot of credit. He got his guy, and, they got some good players on this team. Jaleel McLaughlin, he was running the ball well effectively last night. Cortland Sutton continues to make plays for this team. Like I said, Marvin Mims, he's kind of like I guess he's their deep ball guy. He's their speedster. He looks like he's going to be a good player for them. He's in his second season. So, continue to build this team up, and, they're going to be a problem for years to come. Bo Nix is only going to get better. And when you got a guy like Sean Payton there, like I said, he's going to continue to get better. So, to kind of go through this game, actually, because, again, there were a lot of points scored. So, the Broncos got the ball to start the game. They punted. The Browns, they put together a nice drive. Jerry Jeudy had a big game as well, the former Bronco. He started off that drive with a 44-yard reception. They got down to the Denver 29, and Dustin Hopkins continues his struggles. He missed a 47-yard field goal. Then the Broncos answered with a touchdown. They went down the field. Javonte Williams from 2 yards out scored to make it 7-0. Then the Browns answered with a touchdown. This was a David Njoku 8-yard touchdown. So I was down by 6 going into my main league matchup in fantasy last night, and I had Nick Chubb, and my friend had David Njoku. And right after that touchdown, I was like, I lost. Now, Nick Chubb did score a touchdown in this game, but it was a receiving touchdown. It was late. Really did not do much on the ground. The Browns really couldn't get a running game going. So, yeah, it was 7-7 after the first quarter. Then Bo Nix threw his first interception of the game. That led to a Dustin Hopkins field goal, a 45-yarder. Then later in the game, the Broncos, they answered with a touchdown. You had a Burton 1-yard rushing touchdown, so that made it 14-10. Then Jameis Winston threw his first pick six. That was to Benito. That was a 71-yard return. And then the Browns, they came right back down the field. Jameis responding on 3rd and goal. He hits David Njoku for a 4-yard touchdown, so that made it 21-17. And that was the score at the half. And then in the second half, you had a few punts. Broncos then put together a touchdown drive, and this was the 93-yard touchdown by Marvin Mims. And then the Browns responded. They came right back with the 70-yard touchdown by Jerry Jeudy. They went for 2. And they also did get that. So it was 28-25. Couple of punts. Broncos tacked on a field goal. Will Lutz from 36 yards out, so that made it 31-25. Then Bo Nix threw an interception, and the Browns actually took the lead. They went up by a point. A 35-yard reception by Jeudy, and then later 5-yard touchdown pass by Jameis Winston to Nick Chubb. The Broncos then responded with a field goal. Will Lutz, a 27-yard field goal to put them up by 2. And then they thought about going for it on 4th down, but I think they were trying to get the Browns to just jump, which they didn't. So they kicked the field goal. And then Jameis Winston and the Browns, they started to put together a drive, but then he threw an interception to McMillan, and that put them up by 9. And then they were driving again, and then they got down to the Broncos 2 because of a pass interference call, and Jameis threw another pick, and Barton tried to return it for another pick 6, but he was tackled, and that's how the game ended. Very high scoring, and like I said, the Broncos did end up covering, which was good. I finished with 10 wins on the week in my spread pool, but it didn't really matter. I didn't win anything, of course. You got to be nearly perfect to win a week. And like I said, with the Broncos, I didn't expect them to be at this point. It looks like they're going to be a playoff team, and I think they're going to be a problem. I think if Bo Nix continues to play well, obviously, defensively, I thought, these are both good defenses going into this game. I did not expect this to be an offensive showing like it was, but that ended up happening. Jerry Jeudy on the night, he finished with over 200 yards receiving. So he ended up finishing with 235 yards receiving and a touchdown. Elijah Moore had 8 receptions for 111 yards. Njoku, 9 receptions for 52 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Nick Chubb also barely used in this game. You saw a lot of Jerome Ford. Now, Chubb did catch a touchdown, but you could just see he's still not right. A lot of minimal gains. He averaged 2.3 yards per carry last night. Right now, he's not the same. Now, hopefully next year, he goes through training camp, the whole offseason routine, and, he'll be better next year. But, he just is not the same right now. So hopefully next year, things are different. And, the Browns are a healthier team, and who knows? Who knows if he's even going to be back with the Browns? We'll have to keep an eye on that. But Bo Nix, we went over Jameis' stats. Bo Nix, 18 of 35 for 294 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. Jaleel McLaughlin, 14 carries for 84 yards. Marvin Mims, 3 receptions for 105 yards and a touchdown. Cortland Sutton had 6 for 102. Broncos defense had 3 sacks on the night of Jameis Winston and had a couple of turnovers. Well, a few takeaways. 3 interceptions of Jameis Winston. And the Browns fall to 3-9. Broncos improve to 8-5 on the season. They go into their bye week, and then their final remaining games, you got the Colts, the Chargers, the Bengals, and the Chiefs. So not the easiest schedule to close out the year, but I definitely do think you could be looking at 10 wins for the Broncos, 10 or 11 wins. But like I said, you got to give him credit. I mean, Bo Nix on the year right now, 17 touchdowns to 8 picks, almost 3,000 yards passing. You'll take that. You'll definitely take that. And also, my friend sent a couple of stats, or more than a couple, from last night. So, 952 total yards in this game are the third most combined yards in a game this season after Buccaneers-Bengals in Week 7 and Bengals-Ravens in Week 5, which was 962. Then you had Jameis Winston's 497 passing yards are the Browns' single-game record, regular season or postseason, and second most in a game in Monday Night Football history after Tom Brady in 2011 at the Dolphins, which was 517. Then Jameis Winston also had 2 pick sixes, becoming the third player in NFL history to record 400 yards passing in a game with multiple pick sixes alongside Brett Favre in 1993, Week 14 at the Bears, and then Kyle Orton in 2009, Week 17 versus the Chiefs. Now, that first stat that he sent, Buccaneers and Bengals, I don't think they played each other this year. So that had to happen at another time, obviously. But you also had Bengals-Ravens. That happened earlier in the year. That was the first overtime game that they played against each other. But, yeah, so that must have been a typo there. But anyways, then a few more stats here. Jerry Jeudy's 235 receiving yards are the most by any player in a game against his former team in NFL history. I mean, yeah, he had over 200 yards receiving. And then first game since 1950 with back-to-back plays with offensive touchdowns of 70-plus yards. Bo Nix's 93-yard TD to Marvin Mims in the third quarter was the longest TD pass by a rookie since Charlie Batch. Wow. Former Steelers backup quarterback in 1998 against the Bears. 98-yarder. So there's some stats for you for this game. Again, did not expect that to happen, that kind of game. But it was an exciting game. I just wish, for fantasy purposes, it went a little bit better for me because it was a rough weekend. I basically got eliminated in 3 of my leagues. But I still am alive in a couple. So hopefully, those end well for me. My dynasty leagues, I'm out basically in both. I lost. I told you guys yesterday. I lost on the Josh Allen receiving/passing touchdown. I ended up losing by 3 because he got 10 points on that play. It was a rough week for fantasy, but you know what? Hey, we got 10 wins in the spread pool. Maybe we put together a run here towards the end of this final stretch here. But yeah, let me know what you guys think though about this game. What were your takeaways from it? Let me know in the comments. So we are going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we will talk about the Jets-Seahawks game from Sunday. We'll also talk about if Aaron Rodgers should be benched, but from some comments made by Jeff Olbrich, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.